There are things in this world we do not understand. There are those among us who have seen things they cannot explain. When the universe provides more questions than answers, we investigate with an open mind and a skeptic's eye. This is On the Fringe, an exploration of the curious, the interesting, and the unexplained.
Good evening, and welcome to another edition of On the Fringe. On a personal note, tonight's show falls upon my birthday. But as interesting as that may be to me, it doesn't really fall into the category of curious or unexplained, especially since I just explained it. But as I celebrate turning 38 years young, we're celebrating another momentous occurrence this evening, our first in-studio interview. We have in the studio with us Leland Judson, a writer and field researcher for Adept Initiates, which is a forum for the research and discussion of ancient mysteries and forgotten occult knowledge. So stick around as we hear about his experiences with these exciting topics. But first, since it's my birthday, here's a song called Birthday. Here's the Sheepdogs on FM 98.5 CKWR. FM 98.5 CKWR. That was the Sheepdogs with Birthday, because it's my birthday. Thanks for joining us once again right here on the Fringe. And tonight we have a guest. We have with us Leland Judson. And as I said before, he is a writer and field researcher for Adept Initiates. Thank you for joining us, Leland.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show, guys.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this, and of course a little bit about Adept Initiates and exactly what it is that they do.
Okay, well, before I started getting into this sort of stuff, I actually had a paranormal encounter when I was a kid.
Okay.
So I guess I'll go into that a bit for you.
Please.
All right, so when I was a kid, me and my friend used to always build tree forts, and one night we decided to sneak outside and to work on the fort at night. And we actually had an encounter with some light beings. They sort of look like ghosts.
Okay.
So then after I had that encounter, it sort of changed the direction I think that my life was taking, and I really started researching paranormal topics of any kind, ghosts, UFOs, just sort of get some more information on what I had saw and hopefully try to solve that. And then later in life, I just ended up going to work at a regular job. But then later, I think probably around 2012, my job didn't really work out too well. So then I decided to get more into the paranormal research. And actually sold some of my stuff and bought a plane ticket and went up north and started exploring to see if I could find any answers about ancient mysteries myself. And then after I had some luck doing that, I actually got a job writing for Adept Initiates. So what they do is they talk about different ancient mysteries, and it's a sort of a website where you can read blogs, and then we also have a Facebook page where you can discuss it. So that's how I got started.
So really it's kind of open for anybody who's got experience or interest in it to get in on the discussion as well. Is that sort of the case? Or?
Yeah, it's a really active Facebook page if you want to go in there and check it out. We got so many new posts on there every day, and a lot
Excellent.
of people discussing paranormal topics as well.
Oh, that's great, because like here and on the Fringe, of course, we encourage that kind of discussion, and that's really what we're all about. So to hear that there's yet another forum out there for that is fantastic. So before, I want to give out some of your info where people can find you on the web, as well as Adept Initiates. But before I do that, I just want to give a reminder to our listeners, our loyal listeners, and any new listeners, where you can find On the Fringe all over the interwebs. You can find us on Twitter at On the Fringe Show. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/On the Fringe Radio Show. You can email us at onthefringeradioshow@gmail.com, or you can check out our website, www.onthefringeradioshow.ca. And if you want to contact Leland or see what he's all about, you can get him on Facebook, www.facebook.com/LelandJudson. That's LelandJudsyn. And the website is judson.weebly.com. And for Adept Initiates, it's adeptinitiates, all one word, .com.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, it is.
And we'll be repeating that sometime in the near future.
Yeah, and, I mean, since he's in here with us, if you've got a question, jump on Facebook and post it on Facebook, or send us a tweet or even an email.
Yeah, and we can field it while we're live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll do my best to answer.
Well, in the meantime, so I'm already intrigued with this initial paranormal encounter that you had as a child.
Sure.
So first and foremost, like you said, you were 8 years old?
I was around 10 or 11.
10 or 11, okay. Yeah. So I know that's going back a long way, and I mean, I don't mean that the way that it sounds, but that's going back a number of enough years. Like, do you recall that you ever had sort of a curiosity or an interest in anything to do with ghosts and the paranormal or anything like that beforehand, or were you just sort of, it never really crossed the transom of your mind? Do you recall?
Yeah, actually, when I was a kid, I remember the paranormal stuff really wasn't very big, so I really hadn't even heard of anything to do with it before I had the encounter. But then shortly after that happened, actually the X-Files came on TV, so then everyone was talking about it.
Ah, yes, I remember that. All of a sudden, yeah, paranormal things, it was like everyone, was all into it because, of Mulder and Scully, so.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about this. Like, so the encounter, so clearly, I would guess because you were able to describe them a little bit, you saw them.
Yeah, what happened was we were walking outside, and then as we got about halfway through my property, which my parents' property at the time was pretty big, and it has a big wide open field at the back, so we were going through there, and we just happened to see these light beams in the corner of our eye, and it's like me and my friend were standing like right next to them at one point because they walked towards us, and we actually had a bit of missing time too. It's like they came within about an inch, almost like touching us, and then it was like daytime. So we had about, 5-6 hours of missing time. And it was almost like a time skip too, because it's like I didn't really have anything happen in between.
That you can recall anyway.
Yeah, it was like I was almost like finishing the same breath and it was daytime. So I was like,
wow.
Yeah.
So, did they make any noise? Did they say anything?
Well, that was the weird thing, too, is, like, they came right up to us, like, within an inch of my face at one point, but they never said anything. And then it wasn't until the next day I actually went outside looking to see if I could find any evidence that they might have left behind. And they had left a coin from Mexico, and it had a cactus picture on the back, which actually has a legend about how they founded the city of Mexico. So when I got that coin, that's when I really thought I should start researching ancient mysteries if I wanted to find out what these light beings are about.
Do you still have the coin?
I actually did have it up until last year, but I brought it with me somewhere, and then I was showing it to some people, and then later I was tipping that night, and I accidentally tipped it into a tip jar.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, but I took lots of pictures of the coin and stuff, and it's not actually a very rare coin. It's a 1964 Mexican coin.
Okay.
But I found that right in the spot where the light beings were, and like here in Canada, we don't really have many Mexican currency kicking around, so I thought that was definitely a clue to...
And you hadn't been to Mexico before?
No.
And your parents hadn't?
No.
And you might get it in change or something, but it'd be weird to find it out in a field like that.
Yeah, very much so.
Especially in the, I guess that would be, about the 90s, early 90s.
Right. Yeah, it's a weird thing to be there.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of my friends that had even traveled to Mexico before. That was pretty rare back then.
Yeah.
So were they, I'm just curious about this. I'm absolutely fascinated. This sort of thing has always, fascinated me. When I hear about other people having these experiences, there's always that level of fascination for me that's sort of lightly basted in jealousy, because I haven't ever seen anything this cool, and I'd really like to. But like, did they have features? Were they sort of human in appearance?
Yeah, that was pretty the weird part of it too, is they looked human, but their head wasn't like really defined. And it wasn't like they were blurry, like they were like a ghost or anything. They actually looked like they were made of plasma. And their hands looked like mittens, so you couldn't actually see defined fingers. So it's like they definitely looked human in a way, just from their general shape, but there was some features that definitely made them stand out.
So some aspects weren't quite right, you would say?
Yeah, like when I first saw them, it was pretty much the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. I actually got severe chest pains from the encounter, and it was like I even went to a doctor later to get checked out just to make sure I was all right. And that's where the paralyzation comes into. I don't know if you heard a lot of UFO encounters of people get paralyzed. Mm-hmm. It's like I had that exact thing, but I was almost thinking maybe it was from the fear aspect of it, just from seeing something you've never seen before.
That could be. Like, we definitely have hardwired into us a fight or flight response. And I can only imagine that. So obviously you didn't attack them, and obviously you didn't run away. So if you got the fight or flight response but sort of ignored it, then that could maybe cause a physiological reaction, right? Like, I mean...
Well, you hear about people being, quote-unquote, paralyzed with fear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is what that sounds like, where it's almost like the fight or flight response got overridden somehow.
Yeah, it almost went into fear shock, as it were. Like, shock is apparently so much pain, you don't feel any pain. Is this so much fear that you're just, well, I can't run, and I can't attack. I'm just going to stand here and be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
No, my friend that was with me at the time, he actually had the same reaction, but he seemed to get a little bit worse. Like, I was still able to move my head around, but he was completely frozen. Like, it almost looked like he had started to say a word and his mouth was still half open or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you still keep in touch with this person?
Yeah, he was one of my best friends growing up as a kid, and we still keep in touch on Facebook every now and then, but he's not really into the paranormal research stuff. He sort of, after the encounter, liked it for a while to talk about it, but then as he grew up, he just didn't really want to talk about it much anymore.
So it's a bit of a sore spot for him.
Yeah, I think he just sort of moved on. Maybe he will talk about it sometime, but might have to pull it out of him.
Well, everybody copes differently. He might have decided that, it was just active imagination and it never really happened.
Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting, that you got into it. It certainly sounds like your life took a... bit of a course change there when you went out to maybe explain to yourself what you'd experienced, which got you onto this path that you're on now.
Yeah.
So how did you get from there to Adept Initiates?
Well, I put all that stuff aside and just worked a regular job for a while, but then I decided to go up north and start exploring. Actually, it was on December 21st of 2012. I watched a show about Phoenicians that were traveling to... Well, there's a guy named Scott Walter who talks about Phoenicians coming to North America. So I was like, heck, if this is possible, maybe I should be doing this. And I figured up north in Canada is a good spot to check because a lot of people haven't really for paranormal stuff anyways.
And the Phoenicians, of course, being an ancient seafaring people from the Mediterranean area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then after I heard about that, I went up north, and up north was pretty wild. Like, I was near the Timmins area.
Right.
So that's about a good 1,000 miles almost. Well, I guess 900 kilometers from Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good clip.
It's a bit of a drive.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, the first trip I even made it by plane.
Oh, good.
I hired a private plane, and he actually flew me in over some pretty amazing sites. So
Nice.
I got an idea of the area of where I wanted to search. And on the way, I found a town that was just rampant with Bigfoot encounters. And then I also found a military base that was abandoned on top of a dormant supervolcano. And then I checked into the history of it, and they had a whole bunch of UFO encounters. And it's actually some famous ones. I don't know if you heard about the radar systems for the Cold War area and I think, what was it, the war with Russia, maybe?
Yeah, the Cold War.
Yeah, the Cold War. So, yeah, the radar towers in that military base had some pretty famous encounters with UFOs.
Is that Falconbridge?
Falconbridge is one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we talked about that one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this base was called Ramore. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's actually not really that far from Timmins, maybe about an hour away.
There's a line of radar. They're out of service now, but radar installations across the north of Canada that were designed to detect Russian bombers coming in over the pole.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
But there is a long history of them picking weird things up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my research from there kind of expanded, and I decided to start climbing to the top of different mountains in the area to see if I could find any ancient sites there. And then I found a really old offering table that looked really familiar to other ones I'd seen in research before. And then after getting some help with friends and different researchers, I found out there was a good chance that it was right next to King Solomon's gold mine. And that's a pretty famous mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it was in Northern Ontario, no wonder they didn't find it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's going to think to look there?
But I mean, if that's true, that changes everything we know about travel in the ancient world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it sets a few things, back kind of far. Like, I mean, people showing up in this area with that level of technology, it changes the game in a lot of ways. I wonder if there may be I'm certainly no academic myself, but I'm wondering if maybe in the halls of academia, if that's maybe upsetting a few apple carts, and they're like, no, we don't want to talk about the Phoenicians coming to then, because if there's if you could just be tooling around looking for it and you find this, like, why would they not send a professional expedition to go and have a look at this, instead of just saying, like, oh yeah, it's just kind of this junk theory that people think the Phoenicians came here, and not look into it, like, because my understanding of research and whatnot is there really shouldn't be any boundaries until you find that there are, right? Like, you got to research it, you got to look into it. Oh, we've got this lead. Okay, well, let's at least go check it out. Yeah. Like, there's an entire show right now going on in Nova Scotia dedicated to the mystery of Oak Island.
Oh yeah, I wrote a blog about that.
Yeah. My dad is super fascinated about that. He remembers reading about that when he was a kid, and now there's people there looking for it, and they may end up finding nothing, but at least they're looking. You know what I mean? Like, that's it's part of the search.
Yeah, so. And I mean that's one of those reality shows where they kind of ham it up a little bit, because this is something I want to talk about on a future episode of On the Fringe, but where, let's say you go into a house to do a paranormal investigation, right? Mm-hmm. And nothing happens at all.
Yeah.
That is a perfectly valid scientific result, but it makes bad TV.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, there's always... Yeah.
So then, but I mean, the legend of the Money Pit and the legend of Oak Island go back long before reality TV. There's that... perhaps that original kernel of truth to it before it got all Hollywoodized, if you will.
Well, I mean, this isn't even the first expedition. There was some in the 1800s, and there was some in the 30s. Like, I mean, there was expeditions before this.
Absolutely.
There was even some in the 70s. This is the first televised expedition.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's like now we're trying to use all of the modern computer technology and stuff we've got to delve into that. But my point simply is that they're looking into it. Like,
and they think anything from, like, the Templar treasure to...
the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant could be down there.
Which, I gotta say, like, yay humanity if we find the Ark of the Covenant. It's like, hey, we found this relic. But it's like, man, I'll never be able to watch Raiders again. Like, the same, because it's like, wait a minute. The Ark of the Covenant's not supposed to be there. We all saw Indy give it away, and they put it in that warehouse at the end.
Yeah, but, well, that's the thing, though. Is it... If it's true, that changes everything.
Right.
So, take us through this now. So, you found an offering table.
Yeah, so what happened was I started sharing all this information that I was finding on Facebook, and then some of the people at Adept Initiates were reading it, and they really liked my work and offered me to start writing blogs and doing field research for them. So that's how I got into that.
Excellent.
You know.
So, yeah, well, I'm learning so much on this show. I love it. Every week.
Curious, the interesting, and the unexplained, right? That's our mantra.
So,
our mandate. And this certainly qualifies. So,
yeah, and then for the offering table discovery, some people started helping me from all over the world. And there was a girl named Maya that lives in Bulgaria, and she sent me some pictures to compare it to the one that I found in Canada, because the Phoenicians actually had a base in Bulgaria that was not far from their capital city in Sidon.
Okay.
So what happened was with that, I started getting help, from Maya in Bulgaria. And then, I also had a researcher that was familiar with Egyptian relics. And she showed me some pictures and asked me to compare it. And so I started getting matches for Egyptian relics in this offering table, the Phoenicians, and the whole Bulgarian area. So there was a mystery that just keeps developing more and more, and I was getting so much help from different places. It was pretty wild.
Well, it's clear that there's lots of other people all over the world that are open-minded enough that they've opened themselves to the possibility to, why couldn't these people have gotten there? Just because we didn't find a whole mountain of proof that they had.
Yeah.
Why couldn't these little indications turn out to lend credence to the fact that maybe they did? I mean, it's got to be. I don't know. Like, it could it just be human ego where we're just like, no, we know what our history is. Moving on. You know,
I found it in research that when you see something that is completely outside of the established narrative, you make it fit into the established narrative.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't. It's like, hey, look, there's this offering table in Bulgaria that was, left by the Phoenicians, and there's one near Timmins. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So it's clearly not a Phoenician offering table.
Right.
It's something else.
Right.
And maybe that's true, but maybe it's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of the issues when I started researching. I was like, hey, this seems a little bit hard to believe that the Phoenicians could have made it all the way to this offering table, because there wasn't roads back then. You could only use water basically for traveling. So then I started looking up the river systems in the area, and it turned out that the Ottawa River stopped right next to that offering table, and you only had to walk about a mile or so. So it's like the Ottawa River connects to the St. Lawrence, which then takes you to the ocean.
Yep, which comes, and the St. Lawrence is just like...
It's a massive
It
river.
opens right up into the...
It's essentially a highway.
Yeah, and it opens right up into the Atlantic, which is, if they follow those currents coming from the area of the world that they did, it's like they could have just drifted. Okay, well, let's head down here and see what
we know
it is.
the Viking, the Norse, got here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was hotly debated for a long time.
Here's the thing. If somebody came and camped out on what is now your lawn 3,000 years ago, what are the chances you know anything about it?
Yeah, like their campsite's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Like, unless they left a giant stone
offering
statue
table?
So that's the thing.
So keep going. Keep walking us through this.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
So the Phoenicians were involved in King Solomon's gold mine when I was looking it up. And they said that they were the ones with the boats, and they were apparently shipping the gold, but they couldn't find where the Phoenicians were getting the gold from. That was always the big mystery. So I was like, I should check the gold mines around this Timmins area and by this offering table to see what the gold quality's like. And then when I actually have a friend that works in one of the mines there, and he was bragging to me that not only is the Kirkland Lake gold good, it's close to that offering table, but it's ranked number 2, the best in the whole world. And it's like one of the... So it's like the biggest gold supply, and it's in the perfect hiding spot. And that was a big thing with King Solomon, is he had to have his gold mine hidden. So what better place could you have to hide it than way up in northern Canada?
Yeah, like on the other side of the known world,
Well, that's the thing with King Solomon's mines, is that there was this King Solomon.
Yeah.
There was a supply of this very pure, high-quality gold.
Mm-hmm. And no one knew it was coming from.
And no one knew where it was coming from. To this day, no one knows where it was coming from.
And, again, so clearly it's coming from...
somewhere.
Earth, but if there's an entire continent out there that the average, even educated person of the time has no idea that it exists, that is well hidden.
Yeah.
Like, that's about as well hidden as you can get. Like, so just because we consider through European history a time when the New World was discovered, and let's be honest, that already doesn't hold some water, because we constantly have to remind people, when we got here, there were people here. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, there were the First Nation and, Native Canadians, Native Americans. It's not like we got here and there was no people, so,
I wonder if Native Americans have some sort of oral tradition of this.
Yeah, that was the interesting part, too, is I started looking at the different, shipping ports that are along the river, the Ottawa River and the St. Lawrence River. And I noticed that one of the town's names was Magog. I was like, Magog's a pretty popular thing from the Bible and Revelations talking stuff. So I was checking the First Nations records to see if, how long has this place been called Magog for? And it was actually called that for thousands of years before Europeans even arrived. And then when they explained what the translation of Magog meant, it meant large expanse of water. So I was like...
Oh.
Yeah, and then the other ports along the way, too, I noticed were named after other sons of, or grandkids of Noah. It's like Magog is also listed as one of the grandkids of Noah. And then Sidon in, Lebanon? It's also considered, it's named after one of Noah's grandkids.
So could that be where they settled?
Yeah, that's what I was starting to wonder. And it's looking like the Phoenicians had a connection to the biblical Noah. So then I started researching that some more to see if I could prove that, and there's actually a ton of evidence that shows the Phoenicians are related to Noah.
Well, that's interesting.
Absolutely fascinating. Now, is there, just because, hey, we're here on the Fringe, is there like an alien connection to all of this that you found, or?
Well, that's the thing, too, with the gold mine is, like, my friend that works in there was telling me how much gold they're pulling out of there. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, geez, for the world's biggest gold mine or second biggest, it seems kind of like a small amount. And then you got that UFO base that's right next door. And a lot of people have a theory that the Anunnaki came to Earth to get gold.
There you go.
So I was like, yeah, these Anunnaki and the alien sightings right next door could be something that connects it to it.
Well, you know what? I smell a segue. So
is that what that is?
That's a segue.
That's what that
is. You know what? We actually, thanks to Leland, and we'll talk a little bit about it after we come back, but thanks to Leland, we actually found a song called Anunnaki Came for Gold. It's by Richie Barron. So here it is, right here on FM 98.5 CKWR.
Anunnaki came for gold. Ancient aliens for the gold. From that Buru for the gold. Our history books, they are mostly wrong. I had to write it all down in this song. Egyptian, Cyprian, Sumerian text. From the heavens they came through a time of text. Anunnaki came for gold. Aliens for the gold. Made the humans find their gold. Anunnaki kings lived for thousands of years. African gold mines before De Beers. Now only known to a powerful few. Running those circles, you might meet them too. Anunnaki came for gold. Ancient aliens for the gold. From that Buru for the gold. Who mined the stones of Puku? Who carved the Eastern Island heads? Who built the thousands of pyramids? History books won't tell you who did. Anunnaki came for gold. Ancient humans find their gold. From that Buru for the gold. Anunnaki came for gold. From that Buru for the gold. Ancient aliens for the gold. Anunnaki is still among us today. A powerful race, still got human slaves. Their agenda is a mystery. Baby, it's in on changing history. Anunnaki came for gold. Ancient aliens for gold. Made the humans mine their gold. Siskin deciphered old Sumerian text. From the heavens they came, through space and time vortex. Changed the human's DNA. Made them slaves in their gold mines every day. The Illuminati know who they are. You run in those circles, you might see them too. Anunnaki came for the gold.
FM 98.5 CKWR, that was Richie Barron, Anunnaki Came for Gold. And we're here in the studio talking to Leland Judson about just such things as mysterious gold mines and offering tables in places they shouldn't be. But before we get back into the discussion, I just want to throw some more of the interweb at you and how you can find us on the internet, contact us, and check out the show more in depth. So hit us up on Twitter at @OnTheFringeShow. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/OnTheFringeRadioShow. Email us at onthefringeradioshow@gmail.com. And our website, www.onthefringeradioshow.ca. So, yeah, that was Anunnaki Came for Gold by Richie Barron. So, now you said that he was a Facebook friend of yours.
Yeah, I met him on Facebook and talking about the different Anunnaki stuff.
The Anunnaki being the Mesopotamian deities, right?
Yeah, I think the word translates Anu, or Anu, which was one of the Mesopotamian gods. And what is it? Ki was earth, so from those that came from heaven to the earth, I believe it translates to.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories that they were, well, as you say, from another world, perhaps.
Yeah,
And aliens came down.
Well, clearly, like there's that saying that, like, future technology to a primitive culture will look like magic. So, I mean, here they come down to the Mesopotamians, who, as far as we know, did not have space flight. And if they come here, they're going to look like gods. Allegedly. We always have to say allegedly because we weren't there. But, and that, like, could that be one of those examples where we've got alien influence in our history? Because they came down, they visited with our ancient peoples, and it comes all the way down to, a song.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, it goes back to a discussion we had a couple of weeks ago, but assuming there's intelligent life on other planets, assuming they have space travel, and assuming they have visited Earth, why would they necessarily do it now?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they do it 3,000 years ago?
Right. Well, yeah.
And if they were so advanced that we couldn't possibly challenge them, why would they do it in secret?
Yeah.
Right? It's like if you've ever seen Stargate, it's like they came down and impersonated ancient Egyptians.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, the ancient Egyptian gods, I think, were aliens.
Yeah.
In that,
well, that's that whole thing. It's because they go through and they go to this planet that's on the other side of the galaxy, and it's basically being run like ancient Egypt by these old gods.
By the sun god Ra, I think.
Yeah. I think it was, yeah.
Which is,
it's been a while since I've seen that film. Good film. Didn't care for any of the shows that much. But
first time you see it, it seems like a bit of a stretch. But then you think about it, and it's like, well, maybe.
Well, yeah, because it's like that. There's always that one thing that we got to remember. We weren't there.
The question is, can you categorically say that didn't happen? I can't.
Right. That's just it. That's entirely
it.
So.
Anyway, back to we were talking about gold in the Kirkland Lake area near Timmins.
Yeah. Coming
from one of the largest gold mines in the world.
Yeah.
I know that near Sudbury, the nickel mines, a lot of that came from an ancient asteroid impact.
Yeah, I went through Sudbury a few times on my way up north.
It's the second largest crater on Earth, I think. in the Sudbury Basin. The Sudbury Basin is the second largest crater on Earth, and a lot of meteors and asteroids are composed of precious or semi-precious metals. Gold, platinum, nickel, things like that.
Right,
which is why every couple of years somebody kicks around the idea of like grabbing an asteroid and bringing it into orbit so we can mine it.
Yeah, do less damage to the Earth and still get what we need.
Yeah, because I think there's more platinum on like a medium-sized asteroid than has ever been mined on Earth.
Right. So then could that be what...
Maybe that's where the deposit came from.
Yeah.
And, maybe the Anunnaki were onto something with the coming down for gold, and, maybe King Solomon found a really good vein of gold. You never know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But,
Well, think
it
about
certainly
it.
sounds like there's something to this theory.
Well, if he was a king, like, he couldn't order the expedition. And if the expedition was successful and came back and was like, look, we found a lot of this stuff, and we know how to get back there. Like, it's far away. It'll take us like a year to get back there, but this is what this was. Why would he not be like, all right, go and start the process?
Well, that was the whole thing with Solomon, is this mysterious source of wealth. This gold, this wealth is coming from somewhere, but people had no idea where it was. And that goes back to it. It's like, we haven't talked about it on the show yet, but if you came into some great discovery, like let's say I invented time travel in my basement, you and I, Rob, because we're co-hosts. If you and I invented time travel in my basement, why would we tell anyone?
Wait. Before we continue with this, I just want to know, am I Doc or Marty?
You'd be Marty.
Sweet.
I've got the crazy hair.
Awesome.
But why would you
skateboard.
tell anyone? Why would you flaunt that?
Well, exactly. And
The first thing you do is you eliminate the witnesses.
That's even the story, really, behind Back to the Future. I mean,
That's true. He invented in his garage.
You follow those three movies. They go back to the 50s, and then they change 1985, and they come back, and then they end up in 1885, and then they come back and put everything right. But it's not like the government's like, hey, there's time travel. Let's go talk to these guys. This adventure happens. It's sort of self-contained with only a few minute characters that are going on. And it's like, why would that necessarily be a worldwide phenomenon if somebody, like you said, up and figured it out?
Yeah, so that's one. If you come to a great discovery, like, keep it a secret.
Right.
Yeah.
And B, this is another example of kind of the so-called old world contacting the new world long before they officially did.
Yeah, well, at least according to our post-European historical records, right? Like, because I said, even in the quote-unquote discovering of the new world, as far as the European point of view goes, there was already people here. We didn't discover it. We just discovered it for our civilization and our records and the history that was
at least until
ongoing
smallpox took care of business, but that's a separate issue. But anyway,
that's that close to getting us in trouble. Just putting that.
No, I'm saying it was a bad thing. Obviously,
No, I know.
But yeah, so Leland, keep walking us through this.
Sure.
Where does it go from here?
Well, I started looking into that Magog place again to see if I could find out what was going on there now, to see if it has any connection still with the gold. And like you said, like, people don't want to give away their secrets. Well, I happened to find out that there is the world's largest outdoor Freemason base that's currently still active in Magog. So I was like, oh, that's pretty wild.
I think I just officially got the willies. I think that's what that is.
Yeah, and then, well, even more so is, like, I checked into what made them choose this spot in Magog to have their base, and it turns out they have a giant rock there that's in the shape of an owl, and it's the one that Bohemian Grove is actually modeled after. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that place before.
No, where's that?
Yeah.
It's a famous place in the States, I believe, in California, is it?
I believe so, yeah. It's where all, like, the rich and famous go, like, the rich and powerful people, like politicians and that, and they have...
I've heard of that. There was a guy...
Rituals or something, and they have their...
because there was a guy who apparently filmed some things where they had a big bonfire, and they were doing some sort of chanting, and it was really weird.
Yeah,
and there's even... now, this may go a little bit further into the conspiracy theory thing, but I did see some pictures that were kind of weird, but there was talk that they sacrificed a child there or something like that in the fire, and I was like, this is going a little bit further than my comfort zone. I was just tooling around on the internet looking for ghost videos. Next thing you know, I'm reading up on this stuff.
Yeah,
So-
I never really researched the Bohemian Grove place too much, but yeah, it appears that place is actually just a fake, and they set it up there as a distraction to make people think that that was the main place.
That's
but
cool.
this place in Magog is actually the one that it's based off of. So there's a chance maybe that there's still some action going on with this gold. Like, I'm not sure, like, when you go to this gold mine in Kirkland Lake and you ask them if you want to come in and take a look to see if they found any relics from King Solomon's era, and that whole place is like off limits. No people from the public are allowed to go in there. The only people that are in there are miners, and they're all allowed or not allowed to talk about it in most cases.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, who knows if like some giant corporation was going to shut down their gold mine to open it up to an excavation for King Solomon, or would they just keep the profits and keep it quiet? So, I don't know. I can't say that's for sure what's going on there, but it does seem a little suspicious when you see a Freemason lodge on every corner on the way around the mine, too, right?
Freemasons, Anunnaki, King Solomon, oh my. Like, there's just all kinds of
There's
stuff
definitely some kind of
this.
occult connection there, it sounds like.
Definitely. Wow, that's very fascinating. It's wow.
Yeah.
And it's all in all, it's really not that far from where we are now. It's a good 9-hour clip north.
Yeah, and there's a connection to the Anunnaki with that still, too. You guys were talking about different gods that they had. Well, the god of the Anunnaki turns out to be this winged disc character. And I looked it up, and he happens to also be the god of the Phoenicians, and he's actually the secret meaning to Freemasonry. So it's like here we got another 3 connections there.
Wow.
It's one of those things where, you know, at some point there's enough circumstantial evidence where you have to sit back and be like, okay, this sounds like there's something to this.
Yeah, like what is going on? Like
if somebody comes up to you and says, yeah, King Solomon's mines are in northern Ontario, you'd be like, yeah, okay. But then but wait.
I can guarantee before tonight I probably would have.
Yeah, but then it's like, but wait, here's this and this and this and this and this. And individually it's like, eh.
Yeah.
But then when you put it all together, it's like, okay, maybe I need to take a closer look at this.
Right. Now, have you ever gotten the idea that you're being blocked in any way from looking into this? Or because you've told us about how you've contacted different people or people have contacted you and kind of put pieces to the puzzle together. Have you encountered any opposition to this where you might think to yourself, somebody doesn't want me looking into this?
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. When I was sharing the information, I didn't just share it on Facebook. I actually got a booth at a convention in Toronto called Fan Expo.
Oh, yes.
So what I did is I set up a booth there and then started sharing my research just to random people that were fans about it. And a lot of them were really fascinated about it. And then at one point, I had 3 old guys come over that just made a V-line to my booth. And they were asking me a whole bunch of questions about Freemason type stuff, doing weird handshakes and stuff. And they actually did seem a little bit upset that I was talking about this stuff. But when they asked if I was selling the information, and I said no, I was actually just got the booth to promote it, I wasn't actually selling anything, then they were okay with it and shook my hand and left.
So now that's some suspicious behavior there.
Yeah,
that really is, right?
3 old guys too at Fan Expo kind of stand out too, because most of the people there are pretty young. Right?
Yeah, and like you said,
I was there about 5 years ago. It's almost like a Comic-Con kind of deal.
Yeah,
in Toronto, it's in Toronto, right? The one in Toronto at the
big convention
Metro Convention Center.
Yep. And anyone from the public can just rent a booth for anything they want
for X amount of money, or you can just go.
Yeah. So,
it's in August.
But like you said, like they made a beeline for your booth. These old guys seemed kind of out of place. They were doing the weird handshakes, and it wasn't until you said that you weren't making any profit off of it that they were all of a sudden okay with it. Like that speaks like you kind of like when you observe people in their body English and their behavior, that all sort of sends a signal to they had something invested in it, even if it was just on a personal level. That if you'd answered the other way, well, what would have happened? What would have been the response?
Yeah, and I mean, if you're doing it for altruistic reasons, maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not really sure what to make of that whole situation.
That's interesting. That's just another one of those things that makes me sit back and go,
that's fascinating. That's
and the only other case I came across that sort of thing, too, is I made a few Freemason friends on Facebook, and I would ask some questions about this, and every once in a while they would just stop responding. And it's like, I don't know if they weren't allowed to talk about it or what the deal was with that, but...
interesting.
Don't the Freemasons have some sort of legend about the Anunnaki being supreme beings to them?
Yeah.
Something like that? I don't know a lot about it, but I remember hearing that. So there's connection after connection here.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, too, when I was doing this research. Someone in my family actually happened to mention that they had something I should take a look at. It was an ancient relic that they had found a long time ago, like over 40 years ago. And I was wondering, too, it's like as I was researching this, what it was and if it could be connected to this King Solomon's thing.
And what was it?
It was actually, at first, we weren't sure what it was. It was a black amulet of a dog. And after quite a bit of research, I was able to match it to the Phoenician example of Anubis. So I was like, wow. Here I had a connection where I had been basically in contact with this Anubis amulet, and it seemed to match some of the research I was finding at the offering table. Like, the offering table has a picture in Egypt that matches just like it, and it has Anubis on it. So I was like, okay, I should look through my photographs of me next to the offering table to see if it matches anything to do with Anubis. And the clothes I was wearing was a black hat, and my black hat looked exactly the same shape as Anubis's head. The jacket I was wearing was black, and also, like, if you put the two images together, I got them up on my website, but it almost looks like I am doing the exact motion of Anubis filling this offering table. So I was like, heck, is there something weird here with this amulet? It's like maybe it had something to do with how I found this offering table in the first place.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Now, you said that this was discovered also in Ontario.
Yeah, the Anubis amulet is actually someone in my family found it in the ruins of a really old house that was built in the early 1800s. And it was actually just kept in a toy box because we thought it was nothing. And it turned out to be like wasn't, I guess because of this job that I got in contact with the amulet and started researching it more to see if there was more to it than just some sort of kid's toy.
So whereabouts in Ontario? Like anywhere near Magog, or? No,
it's actually in this area. It's I'd say less than an hour drive from here, just in the rural areas around Ontario.
Still, all things considered, reasonably close.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of the Phoenician sites appear to be in southern Ontario and northern Ontario.
Well, near the waterways.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the
St. Lawrence Seaway, the Great Lakes.
Yep.
You know,
all easily accessible.
Yeah, and then the Ottawa River Valley, you can get up and around to Timmins and such.
Yep.
So this amulet.
Mm-hmm.
So you said it was in a box. You probably thought it was nothing. At what point did you start to think it was something?
Well, I guess the person in my family who has the amulet was saying that there were some paranormal occurrences that were happening around the amulet. So right then and there, I was like, there's something a little bit suspicious about this amulet. And the other thing, too, is I wrote a blog on the amulet and posted it up to see if anyone could match it to anything. And no one in Egyptology or anything could find a match for it, but it just so happened a rare collection of Phoenician artifacts had one that looked identical to it. So I was like, wow, I've got another match for the Phoenicians and the Anubis and connecting to this overall theory.
Wow.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, just to remind everybody, if you want to check this stuff out, you can hit Leland up on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Leland Judson, and I'll spell that out, LelandJudsyn, and or on the website at judson.weebly.com, and he's got all that stuff up there. Or if you want to check out Adept Initiates, it's adeptinitiates.com. And yeah, you've got, like you said, you got all the blogs and all the photos and stuff posted up there.
And they're up there. You can see Leland's work and the breakdown of, the theories and the research and that kind of thing. Which brings me to, so you've got this amulet.
Yeah.
A member of your family has this amulet. There's a connection, we believe, to the Phoenicians.
Yeah.
What's the status of the amulet now? How goes the research on that?
Well, I continued researching on the amulet, so I asked my friend in Bulgaria to see if she had anything connecting to Anubis there. And it turned out that there was a cave nearby. Well, I shouldn't call it a cave. It's actually a man-made chamber. In this chamber, when you go into it and you look into you know how you look through the opening of a chamber and you can sort of see an outline?
Sure.
Well, this outline matched exactly the same shape of the Anubis amulet. So I was like, here, right next to the offering table is another Anubis artifact that matches. So that was some pretty big research breakthrough there.
Wow.
So then what's the connection between Northern Ontario and Bulgaria, of all places? Like,
Phoenicians, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. That's fascinating. Here we are, right in the middle of a mystery. here in our own home province here.
Now,
that's insane.
Have you done any work on the amulet to try and confirm that it is a relic and not something somebody bought at a flea market or something?
Yeah, that's actually one of the comparisons I was thinking. Like, the two leading theories for this amulet is A, that it was a Phoenician relic, or B, that it was just like a more modern copy. Maybe someone made it as a trinket. Like, Freemasons themselves sometimes hand out Egyptian artifact replicas to different members as, say, like a token of joining or something. So
Sure.
I wondered if that could be the case.
Okay.
So what I did is I contacted some universities to see if we could get some more scientific type tests to narrow this choice down. Is it like more modern or is it really ancient? And then the University of Waterloo here said that they could do spectrometry testing on it, but it wasn't going to give too much of an accurate date, and they suggested that I get radiocarbon dating, I believe it's done on it. So I contacted the University of Ottawa, and they said that they would do the carbon dating on the amulet and would run about $500. But the only problem we ran into is that they require a bit larger of a sample of the paint than is going to be possible, because the amulet itself is only 2 inches big, and the paint layer is really thin on it. It's peeled off. Like, I've got the pictures on my website if anyone wants to check it out. But in order for them to do the radiocarbon dating, it looks like they're going to have to peel all the paint off of the amulet in order to get enough to do the test. So it's almost at the point now where it's like we might have to destroy it to find out how old it is.
And if it is, in fact, what you think it could be, it's a priceless artifact, and the last thing you want to do is destroy it.
Yeah. So another test that we actually came up with that isn't as abrasive, I guess, to the amulet itself is antique shows were able to do, what is it called, ultraviolet light tests. And they should be able to determine what type of paint it is, at least. So we'll be able to find out if it's an animal-based paint or a metal-based paint.
Right. I've heard about this. So you can see if it was like made in the 40s or something, or if it's old.
Yeah. So I'm hoping
that's far less intrusive. That's I would say that's better to do for such, again, possibly a priceless artifact.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you're looking into the ultraviolet testing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then the other test that came up too is the metal itself seems rare because you can put a magnet up to it and it'll stick to it, so it means it has some sort of iron content to it. But the amulet itself isn't rusted at all, or very little. So that's extremely rare for something to be an old metal and not have rusted and have iron in it.
Yeah, because ferrous metals oxidize fairly easily.
Yeah.
Unless it's got some sort of coating or something on it. Yeah.
So I sort of hit a dead end there for a while because I was thinking there wasn't going to be any examples of old metal that I could find that matched the amulet. And then after a few weeks, I came across a story about some Viking swords. And these Viking swords were found in the area of Bulgaria, and they had the same metal properties. And they were considered a mystery because they're like, these swords shouldn't be so light and they shouldn't be that old, sort of deal, right?
So now the Vikings are involved.
Yeah.
The Vikings, the Masons, the Anunnaki.
I know
amazing,
that there's these swords that...
Well, since it was near Timmins, I mean, like, are we getting Shania Twain involved? Like,
maybe in the future. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, let me know if you do.
I know the Vikings had these swords.
Yeah.
That, like, Vikings had lots of swords, but there was a specific kind of sword that they had, which was made from a specific kind of metal that had very low carbon content, and it was very high quality.
Yeah, I think that's the one, actually.
The Ulfbert, I think.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
You got it.
And...
Is there anything known about the origin?
They did some tests on it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you've done this, Leland, but they traced the Vikings trading through the river system into what is now the Middle East.
Yeah.
Which is where, and they're essentially Damascus steel, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Which is very high quality blade that originated, I believe, in they call it Damascus steel because it originated near modern day Syria.
And is that not where Mesopotamia was?
Yes. Yeah. Well, Mesopotamia was more like Iraq, Iran. The metal actually the trade routes actually comes from Iran, what is now Iran. So
Which used to be Mesopotamia.
Right. So there's certainly a geographic connection there, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah, I did actually some blogs on the Phoenicians themselves, and one of the ones that I did was just last year, and it was about the DNA tests that were done on the Phoenicians, and everyone was debating who they were, and it turned out they were the oldest Europeans on record. So if the Phoenicians happen to be European, then there's a good chance that they passed their knowledge on to the Vikings.
And we know the Vikings came to North America.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So there we have another connection between the Phoenicians and the Vikings.
So
and
was
the
it-
And if the Vikings can get to Iran, there's no reason that somebody from that area couldn't get the other way.
Right. And so now the question is did the Vikings find North America, or were they told about North America? And another thing.
Well, if I invent time travel in my basement, I'll ask them.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, then you bring me along, because it's on my bucket list to meet a Viking. Well, and another connection, like I mentioned about Oak Island, like that's supposed to be the Templar, which can be connected to the Freemasons, and people think that there's a connection there, and the Illuminati and all that stuff. So, and that's clearly in North America because it's off the coast of Nova Scotia. So,
Oh, yeah, too, I should mention that one of my readers sent in a picture that they found that almost matched this Anubis amulet exactly, except it was a Scottish tradition where they had a Scotty black dog, or I think that's what they called it, and they used it as keychains, or they also used it as good luck charms, and basically matched the same thing that the Phoenicians were using it, the Anubis amulets for.
And then we know, of course, if there is a Viking connection there, we know that they extensively visited what's now the British Isles.
Yeah.
wow.
Well,
Wow.
So that's like really the connection there, is that the Scots were related to the Phoenicians as well. So this Anubis amulet tradition might have been passed down for, say, 1,000 years, and eventually turned into the Scotty dog amulets.
And I've heard that there are connections with the Scots and the Illuminati and the Freemasons and the Templar stuff. So,
Yeah.
wow. Well, you know what? Like, that hour just flew by, but it seems like we've already.
We're gonna have to get you back in here real soon.
You back, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
All right, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so that's it for tonight's show, and we want to thank Leland Judson for joining us. Thank you so much. This has been fascinating, and we will have to have you back in the future. Next week, we'll be continuing with our ongoing series on the Hynek UFO classification scale, Close Encounters of the Second Kind. So until next week, this has been On the Fringe on FM.